You didn't like your neighbors?
I mean, we liked our neighbors, but we just didn't like the noises that they made. But
Care to elaborate on the noises, or?
Use your imagination.
I will. Okay. Welcome to the Lalez Report. I am Ben Lalez, your favorite Chicago real estate broker. Today I'm here joined by Sarah Casper, a former current client and first-time homebuyer, here to share her experiences with first-time home purchasing here in Chicago. Thank you for being here, Sarah.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So, Sarah, just give us a little background about yourself and James and who you are, where you came from, how you landed here in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I'm Sarah. My husband is James, and my husband and I lived in Roscoe Village since around 2009. We met in college and originally from kind of the suburb area. I guess I cheat when I say suburb area because I'm...
Which burb?
I guess it's not technically a burb. I'm cheating when I say it.
What is it?
Wilmington.
Wilmington, okay.
Very, very, very tiny town. But I call it a suburb because no one else knows what it is.
Yeah, I have no idea what it is, honestly.
People think I'm saying Bloomington, and it's not Bloomington. It's Wilmington. But anyway, south of Chicago, farm town, not really my scene. But James grew up in Wheaton, met in college, Iowa, Augustana, and decided, we're going to move up to the city.
The big city.
Big city. Little farm girl, big city. And we fell in love with our neighborhood. And we basically lived in the same spot for, how many years? Over 10, 11, 12 years before we decided that we were ready to take the step into a single family home. And then we decided to seek out still Roscoe Village area, and we found the house that we love.
Yeah, so let's kind of go through, have some questions for those, first-time home buyers who may be watching. So what was the first kind of primary driver of deciding to purchase instead of rent?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, shared walls. That was a big one.
You didn't like your neighbors?
I mean, we liked our neighbors, but we just didn't like the noises that they made. But
care to elaborate on the noises, or?
Use your imagination.
I will. Okay.
And you'll probably find the answer to the noises that we would hear. But I think the pandemic played a big role where we both were working from home. We were in an 800 square foot apartment and trying to make it work. And we did make it work, but we have to stagger our phone calls to make sure that he couldn't hear me on his calls. I couldn't hear him. The water cooler became the kitchen, and we were just in the water cooler way too much, and we started to drive each other crazy.
So it was needing some space from your neighbors and then needing some space for yourselves, who were the primary factors.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be some shameless plugging going throughout this thing.
Of course.
How did you find, me, your real estate agent?
Oh, man. Well,
I remember. I don't know if you remember.
I will shamelessly plug my friend.
Yeah.
So Becky and Will Osnowitz used you to find their house in Roscoe Village. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to find a realtor who knew the market, who could negotiate well, and who was, very well known. So Becky referred us to you, and then the rest was history.
Oh, well, I have more questions. The rest was definitely not history because, we had, there was, I just think back to when we were exploring like a really crazy renovation. I don't know if you remember that one. So there was kind of a trajectory that we followed, but I have some more questions.
Yeah.
So obviously, I assume, right, that you were clicking around somewhere. So how did you didn't come straight to me, I assume, or you didn't go straight to Becky and Will. How did you begin your search?
I think like many others do, just looking on Redfin. And I think that was really it that we were looking at. Yeah. And then started kind of exploring around and realized if we wanted to get a little bit more serious in looking at homes, then that's probably something that we want to find a good realtor for.
Professional help.
Yeah, professional help.
Smart. So again, we're kind of, I wrote a book on this. So this is exactly what the home buying journey typically looks like, is you do a little innocent internet sleuthing is what we call, and then you find a real estate agent, sometimes via a referral, sometimes a Zillow, whatever the case may be. How did you know that I was the right person? And what pointers could you give others to know that you found the right person for you?
Yeah, I think really the key to a good realtor is just listening. And I think you really heard what we were looking for. But I also liked the fact that you kind of challenged us to think about, like, maybe this neighborhood could be a good one, or maybe we can check here. And I think you were super honest as well, which,
Thank you.
To have a realtor sugarcoat things is probably not the right realtor, just because you want to hear it straight and like it is. So
I've been told I'm a little too direct at times. Yeah, tell it like it is.
I mean, we might get to this eventually, but I just remember one of the houses that we went to go see was definitely a gut rehab, or potentially even a tear down. And I think it was in, was it Logan Square, where we couldn't find the key to the house. And so we were looking around everywhere, and then we finally found the key, and you opened the door and there was just a man sitting inside the house with a cat.
I remember this.
And you looked at us and you're like, we're not going in, we're getting out of here. And like, I don't know, maybe another realtor would have just like made light of it and just brought us inside.
I'll share my point of view. So at that point, we had like seen enough where I like knew more or less what you guys were into, and this agent just said, someone might be home. I'm like, that happens sometimes, honestly, especially if it's tenant occupied. So I remember specifically, I go around back, you guys are in front, and I like kind of poke my head in, and I just get like this, just like reeks, right? So, and then, I like poke my head in, and this man is just like staring at me. I'm allergic to cats too, by the way. And at some point in your career, I like stuck my head in, and I'm like, there's absolutely no chance these people are buying this house. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why waste our time? This is super uncomfortable and weird, and just bounced.
Yeah. It was definitely a good use of time.
So let me ask you this. When you started like the whole process, and maybe even throughout, what were you most scared of, if anything?
Oh, I think most scared of during that period of time was getting into bidding wars constantly and losing.
Yeah.
And also I think just scared of the unknowns, especially with what we were looking to do initially in terms of just gut rehab. I think we were excited but terrified by the idea of buying a home, completely gut rehabbing it, not knowing what we were doing.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. So I think that was probably the scariest, but like realistically across the board, just the bidding war element of it, and how high are we going to get, and are we going to be able to afford what we bid?
Yeah. And you're lucky. It's really interesting because during the pandemic and thereafter, there's like this balance of purchase price and interest rate and this game that everyone was playing. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we were like mid-pandemic, so I assume you were flirting with a 3% interest rate, is my assumption.
Yep.
And I'm assuming now you're, thanking your lucky stars that that's the case.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So kind of tell us what the search looked like. We saw, I'm going to wager somewhere between 15 and 25 homes. That's my guess. I can't really remember.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. We went from townhomes to single family homes. And yeah, I think that number sounds about right.
Yeah. So tell me about like the actual search, like touring. What was your favorite part? How did it feel for you guys? Like, I consumed a huge amount of your time. Like this took up so much time. Mm-hmm. Tell it, I've never done this with a home buyer and like kind of debriefed the whole experience before. Yeah. Just tell us about your experience searching.
Oh my God. So many refresh clicks. Just because again, the market was crazy. So as soon as you would see a house, it would literally be like, call Ben right away. Let's go see it. I want to see this house now. So you had to act super fast. And so I think throughout both of our days when we were in calls, and maybe even when we were in calls, we were just refreshing Redfin over and over and over again, the Compass website over and over and over again, and just seeing like, okay, what's coming up? There's no pictures, but it looks like a good address. Let's go see it.
Right.
And I think you kind of get to a point of desperation as well, where, you know, you settle, or you think you're settling a little bit, and you're like, it's fine. Like, we'll just compromise, and I'll just go, you know, let's just go see this house. But I think the journey was pretty stressful in the sense of just like having to be on top of things. And then also understanding you have many other clients as well. So when we wanted to get in touch with you, we wanted to see a house, we'd have to like, okay, is he going to call back soon? Are we going to see this house? Are we going to lose this house?
A little nervy, yeah.
Yeah, very, very nerve-wracking.
So what was your favorite part about the search, if anything?
Favorite part about the search, I think, was when we would be in a house or a townhouse where we could like see ourselves living. I think the fun part about it all was just kind of picturing ourselves in the home and just like making use of the space. And I think it was fun, but it was also an element of reality as well, where I remember going through a house in Irving Park where it was a very open concept home, and we were trying to picture ourselves living in this house, and it was, I think, a brand new home, but we couldn't really like get our whole selves imagined in the home because it was just such a weird, funky layout.
I remember that house.
Yeah. But that was fun. It was really cool to just like plant yourself in a home temporarily and then go out and talk about like, okay, how would we live our life here? Would that make sense? Is this something that we would be happy with? So I think that was really fun.
Yeah, kind of like envisioning yourself in like a whole variety of different places.
Yeah. Different neighborhoods, everything.
What was your least favorite part about searching?
Oh, I think getting our hopes up and then
getting them stomped into the ground.
Stomped. I think, and it's something that I think it's hard to get used to, but you kind of have to get used to as you're going through the home buying experience. And one home in particular that I'm also thinking about is the home that was right on the edge of Roscoe Village, I guess you can call it, right off of Lincoln. And it was a gut rehab home, old home. And, you know, there was a little bit of corners cut, I think, with the rehab itself. So we put in an offer, started imagining our life there, started thinking about everything that we would fix up, and did the inspection, and that was kind of a knife to the heart experience.
Yes, I remember. One of the worst inspections I had ever seen.
Yeah, it was the foundation that was just...
I remember, and we brought out additional people to take a look at the foundation.
Yep. So we had the offer in, and we had to pull the offer, which it was sad, but it all worked out in the end. But at the time, it was pretty difficult.
Part of the process, yeah.
Exactly.
Let's actually talk about like how you felt walking into the home that you eventually did purchase.
Oh man. It felt like home. I know that sounds kind of corny.
Really, really cheesy. Yeah.
Yeah, so cheesy. But when we found this house, it was in the neighborhood that we absolutely loved. So we were already in love with the area. But when we walked into the home, and I know that, again, this sounds so cheesy.
Lay
but
the cheese on. Let's go.
It just felt like us. The design of the house, the decor that they used for just the cabinets and the fixtures. But it really just felt like us. And as we were walking through the house, I think James and I were both like getting more and more giddy of just, oh my God, I think this is the one. And we like had to keep being real though, because we were like, okay, listen, we already put in three offers, right? We did the gut rehab one.
Don't remember.
The other one in Roscoe that was like a duplex up and down that we were gonna get.
I think we did put in an offer really low on the rehab.
Yeah, and then we also went really low on the duplex up and down, because we wanted to rent out the bottom, which.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
That one was interesting.
It was a massage parlor.
Yeah.
On the bottom.
Yeah.
Massage parlor. So
this is a family show. Okay.
Oh, sorry. We just didn't want any unwanted guests visiting our lower level unit. So anyway, going through that house though, we just really we were thinking like, this is it. This is the one.
Take us through the offer and the negotiation, because we were not the only ones.
No. So we walked over to the house, walked back to our apartment, and on the way back, it was just, we needed to decide, this is a fast moving market. Should we do it? And I think all signs were pointing to, let's do it. So after talking with you and talking through just kind of like the considerations of the price of the home and kind of what we would be working with, and the fact that it's a desirable area, there's probably going to be multiple offers. Let's come in a little bit aggressive, but also let's add a personal touch.
Yes.
So that's where, I really wanted to kind of craft our life in this home in the form of a letter to the seller. So just really not just the decor, but their interests as well. They had like beer growlers on their countertop from one of our favorite breweries. They had Cub seats in the backyard, and it was, some of our favorite things, beer and baseball. So definitely, frame the letter around just our interests and living in the home and just growing into Roscoe Village, and walked it on over, slipped the letter in their door, and just hoped and prayed. And honestly, that was like the longest. I don't even know how long it was. It felt like an eternity.
Probably like 12 hours.
Yeah, it felt like it was 12 years. But it was, just kind of a matter of, now it's in God's hands. But
so ultimately, like, we did win. And kind of explain how you felt, right? Because it's so interesting. I've never done this, and like really trying to hear. It's a lot more nerve-wracking than, because I'm kind of desensitized to it.
Yeah.
Talk us through like inspection and lending and lawyers and all of the paperwork and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. I think one thing that we really appreciated was just the network of contacts that you had. So I think, again, like when looking at a realtor or looking at options,
we come with a team.
Yeah, like you're super well connected with, inspectors, and you had a guy for everything that we needed, which worked really, really well. So the process of finding someone, I think, was relatively easy. And, as far as the offer, as soon as it was accepted, it was kind of like, okay, now there's a time frame to get the inspection in, and keeping open-minded during the inspection period, because you just never know what's going to come up.
Yeah, if we crush your hopes and dreams again.
Exactly. So we were prepared for it. But, while that's all going on, you're also talking with the lender and trying to see, what can I get qualified for? Obviously, you're pre-qualified going into the home search, but when it becomes real, you just want to make sure, hey, if I bid this, am I able to get approved?
Can I pay for it?
Exactly. Can I pay for it?
Yeah.
Is it going to be over, under the assessor? But, everything is kind of moving at the same time. And I think having a lawyer to just really dissect some of the fine print of the contract is so helpful, just because it's long and there's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo in there. And, some of those terms, you just kind of read past them, but really they do mean something. So having a team to kind of work through and talk through the contract, the inspection piece, and having an honest inspector as well. I
don't even know who we used, to be honest. Was it David?
It was David.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it helped that he saw the previous homes that we looked at
as
well.
Yeah, that's right. He did the first inspection.
Yeah, so he was able to tell us that we dodged a bullet with the previous house.
Yeah.
But yeah, working with all of them kind of at once, and then it's like that quiet period.
Yes. And the awkward silence, we call it. So 20 days or more of, hey, we did all of the heavy lifting. Let's go get you, X $100,000 in, in a mortgage. So what was that waiting like?
It was like, we were so torn, because like we wanted to go shopping for furniture and we wanted to start getting everything for the home. And we, again, like hopes and dreams were crushed before. So we were like, okay, it's
not done till it's done.
Yeah. Let's be chill about this. Not done till we're in the house. We have the keys. We're in the house. But you read about that quiet period and you know about it, but once you're in it, it's like excruciating because you're just like, should I call them and like check in with like, is everything okay? I haven't heard from them
and
in a long
no news
time.
is good news is what we say.
Yeah, but no news is also like
no news.
You know, stress inducing too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
we were still checking in saying everything's okay, I hope.
Every once in a while, I think like as a first time home buyer, you kind of like, you don't know what to expect.
I know, we need to do more, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Like,
everything's okay.
Everything's okay.
Yeah.
You know, just checking in. We're all good.
Yeah.
No news is good news.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. Like,
it's good feedback.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes the wait worth it once you actually do go to the closing, get the keys in your hand.
Talk to us about closing day. And then up to and through the first week in the home.
Yeah. Closing day. So again, in the pandemic, it was very different.
Yeah, it was fucking weird.
We went into the title company and
lawyers and brokers weren't allowed.
Weren't allowed.
Yeah, unless you were a physical signer. Like, this is going to sound so strange as like, if anyone is ever listening to this in the future,
2040.
Yeah, in 2040, if you're listening, like, we weren't allowed, unless you had, you know, you needed to have physical, we call them wet signatures in ink, you weren't allowed at the closing.
Yeah, it was like, it was very like anticlimactic.
That's what we always say.
But, you know, James and I walk in, we have our masks on, and, you know, we're already like sweating bullets because we're like at our closing and we've got this mask covering our face. So you can't even see if we're smiling and we're happy about this house. But we go into the room, the door's shut, and, you know, we've got this like stack of papers. And also the night before, we did the whole like money wiring and all of that stuff. So you're like hoping and praying that it's coming through. And, you know, sitting at the table, lawyers are on the phone, and it all went super smoothly with all things considered, even though the lawyer wasn't in the room. But he'd be like, okay, we're on page 38. You guys on page 38? Okay, sign.
Yeah.
I think closing took, I don't know, maybe an hour. Like, it wasn't really long at all.
Pretty fast, an hour. Yeah.
It was really fast.
As long as the money gets there on time and fast, then
yeah.
It's pretty smooth.
But yeah, the closing went well, and then got our keys, and when we got in the house, it was so sweet. So the sellers that we bought our home from, we were really, really fortunate in the sense that they were very, very nice, and they left us donuts on inspection day. And then when we moved in, they had everything all laid out. They actually had like an instruction manual for the house, which, like, you know, if you're watching this, I don't know if this is going to be the case in every house that goes on the market.
Definitely not.
It was an exception. But first week in the house, I think the most memorable thing was bringing our dog over. He lost his mind. He didn't know like where he was or what was going on. And we were kind of nervous, like, is he going to like it? And he absolutely loves it now. We actually bought the house for him, we say. But the first week was really just kind of like getting the lay of the land, doing a lot of like cleaning and sorting, and also just trying to get everything in order in terms of like, okay, now we're homeowners, so we have to get like
gas and electric
and like everything all set up and ready to go. And what are we going to do with the garden?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's an exciting time, but it's also kind of overwhelming, and, you know, just taking it one step at a time, getting it all set up and personalized.
It's really interesting. I don't know for you, like, to actually talk through, like, you know, finding me and all the way up to, you know, there's kind of like a lot there. And we always say that, like, I don't know, your agent is basically the only one there from start to finish, which is, it's a unique experience.
Yeah.
Always for both of us. Like, I'm all the way up in your guys' business for like 4 or 5 months. And, you know, it's a lot of fun. So, you know, if you had to look back and do it all over again, you got to push the reset button and start all over, what would you change?
I think this is a really tough question.
You can say,
what would I change?
You can say nothing.
I think it's more so what I would change in terms of our expectations. And I mean, everybody is different, but I think that we eventually kind of came to the reality that like a gut rehab is not, for a first time home buyer, unless like you've got all of your resources secured. So I think the one thing that maybe I would change that would help not waste time is kind of just be realistic about like what you can and can't do and what you know and what you don't know. Because I think we realized after looking at a few homes, doing a gut rehab is, a little ambitious.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I disagree with you. I think part of the experience is learning. Like all you're really saying is like we didn't know what we wanted, right? And we needed to explore our options. I personally think, and we say this to all of our clients, is like if that's something that's interesting to you, let's explore. All we did was explore.
Yeah.
Right? We explored it, we learned about it, and like I don't think any amount of research, not only about the home buying process, but something as, strange as rehabbing a home, I don't think you can learn about it until you see the home, you talk to a general contractor, you take a look at your finances, and I don't know, kind of whatever. That's like part of that's part of the experience. That's part of our job to educate you on that kind of stuff.
I think that's a really good point because we also learned about the different types of loans that you would need to get if you are doing a gut rehab. So maybe I wouldn't change anything. Maybe I would just leave it exactly as it is.
Your experience is, so again, agents, you're kind of actually paying us to be desensitized. You're paying us not, like, of course, we're on the roller coaster with you. We just don't go through the highs and lows as dramatically as you do. And that's kind of like, it's just another negotiation. It's just another inspection. And you want us, I personally think you want us to be that voice of calm and reason because it's such an emotionally like energized experience. That's what I would say. Yeah.
I think like it's something that we had to kind of remind ourselves, as a realtor, you're working with so many different people.
Some other people, but yeah.
Some other people. More than what we're working with. We're just working with you. So like you are our lifeline where like if we don't hear from you, you're our best friend at that time.
Can we be clear? It wasn't like I was going days or even hours without communicating to you. We're talking about like 15 minutes, just to be very clear.
Yes.
And I also had an assistant and David on the transaction with me. Let's just be clear.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was really great.
Good.
And I think that it's something though, I think that as a new home buyer who has no familiarity with like where we're going, what we're doing, it is good to have that team there, just checking in and seeing like, how's it going? Do you have all the answers that you need? Even the lawyer that we used, Vince.
Vince Leon.
Yeah, he was super helpful and talked through so many things about taxes. I learned about
a similar voice of like calm and, just like, here, let me explain it to you. Let's educate you. There's a huge education across probably so 5, 6, 7 disciples that you need to learn.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we came out of it feeling like we had definitely a better handle than what we had going into it. But even learning like those small things about just the way that like property taxes work and how different counties have different property taxes in terms of just when you're paying the taxes for what. Like, are you paying previous years? Are you paying in the future? And my mind was blown that it works different depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
So.
And we always kind of say it's like, that's why we have specialists in lending and attorney and inspection and negotiation and brokerage. But kind of last question.
Yeah.
Because this is, a way, and for buyers, and we may use this. I may ask every buyer to watch this now, honestly.
Oh.
No, just because you get an inside look into like how the process actually goes. But if for the millions of viewers around the world and any future first-time homebuyer, like what would be the 1 or 2 key pieces of advice you would give to someone as they embark on their home buying journey?
I think the first thing when it comes to thinking about where do you want to plant your roots? And I actually didn't mention this earlier, but James and I were kind of toying with the idea of the suburbs and then thinking about, we really love the city. And I think it's trying to figure out where you want to live and why you want to live there. And if you're currently in the neighborhood that you want, I just touched the microphone. Was that okay?
It's okay.
Okay.
Should we start from the very beginning? I'm just joking. It's like start from the top.
No.
So tell us why you wanted to buy. No, I'm just joking.
I'll tell you about my home buying experience again. So if you live in the neighborhood that you're looking to eventually buy a place in, I mean, you kind of know what your kind of routine is, and it's a matter of, do you want to keep that routine? Do you want to maybe establish a new routine? But I think that's the first piece of advice, is just like, where do you want to live and why do you want to live there? And how long are you planning on living there for? Like, is it going to be a couple of years or is it a long-term thing? Because I think that's something you also asked us of, when you buy this house, do you want to stay here for a long time? Or are you guys thinking about, maybe leaving for the burbs or another neighborhood? So that would be one. The second one is, let's see. I think leading up to just like lending, just being smart about what you're spending and how much you're spending, and not doing anything that will jeopardize your ability to get approved. I actually had a friend who I think bought a car when they were going through the home buying process. And I'm sure some buyers already know this, but don't go buying a car.
It changes your debt to income ratio, which affects how much home you can afford.
Yeah. So that's probably the other piece of advice. Just like get all your spending out of the way and then go through your home buying process, get pre-qualified, all of that, and be responsible.
Love it. Well, thank you. This was actually super insightful. I should probably do a debrief with every client after to actually understand a little bit more. So that was the first time homebuyer experience with Sarah Casper. And, I encourage everyone to kind of watch it through, because what I kind of learned is this is way more emotional than I even expected. So thanks for being here with the Lalez Report, and stay tuned for more.